Hello, everybody, and welcome, or rather, welcome back. Because whether this is your first webinar with us or your 50th, you are part of the All About Writing family. Tonight, we've got a story that I think is going to stay with you. It's a story about a young woman who was told implicitly and sometimes explicitly what her limits were and who refused to accept them. It's a story about a mother who watched all of this, sometimes in pride, sometimes in terror, and who found that the only way to process it was to write it down. And it's a story about how two voices, two sets of memories, and two different experiences of the same journey became one book. We're proud to say that we saw this book develop through our mentoring program. And Unbridling, here it is published by Indie Books. And tonight we're joined by all four of the people who brought it into the world. Cheryl and Sandy James and their publishers, Kerry Hamilton and Karina Shurek. Welcome, all of you, and we're so glad that you're here. Okay, I'm going to launch right in and I'm going to ask each of them questions, and then we're going to also ask them to read a little extract, and then you'll have a chance to ask them questions too later on. Okay, so I'm going to start with Cheryl. Okay, so Cheryl, let's start at the beginning, or at least it's one beginning, because, there are often many beginnings. But you ran two comrades marathons against able-bodied athletes, and that alone would be many people's whole story. But then at 33, you discovered sprinting. Can you tell us about that moment? What shifted?
Shucks. How do you choose a moment like that? I always loved running, even growing up. I discovered that when I was very small, running a fun run. And I suppose growing up, people always thought, I should go and try and do the Paralympics. And while I was training for another comrades, and my body was just shutting down and telling me, no, listen, you're done doing the long stuff. It became a point where I had to just go back to ground zero and start fresh and start new. And I suppose that's pretty much where it happened.
Yes, yes, fantastic. Okay, and then when you stood on the podium in Tokyo with that bronze medal, what went through your mind? Was there a single thought, or was it more complicated than that?
It's far more complicated than that, because in that moment there aren't thoughts. There's nothing.
No.
It's just an
There's
emotion. You're in
feelings and emotion.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's just a
Yeah.
euphoria.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, I'm sure. Okay.
yeah.
And at what point did you know that this story needed to become a book? Did that sort of creep up on you, the idea of that?
I think deep down inside, it was always inside me, a hope and a desire that I would live a life worthy of a book. And
Yes.
I think it only became a book for us when my mom and I were in Brazil, and where the sprinting career really took flight.
Yes, yes.
We just knew. Yeah,
You knew. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Amazing. Okay. But through all of it, nonetheless, you kept a journal. So what did journal writing do for you that nothing else could? Or deep down, did you think you needed to preserve what was happening so that you could remember it later?
Most of my journaling was actually written on my heart. The journaling that I did write on paper was also just written to put it down on paper, because it comes differently when it's put down on paper.
Yes, it does,
Yeah.
doesn't it? Yeah,
Yes.
it's different. And when it came to writing the book, what was the hardest thing to put on the page? Was there something you almost left out but decided to keep in, or just was hard to write, hard to put down on the page and imagine people reading it?
I don't think there is a specific moment that I can think of. I think every story that I've shared is a moment that's carried great joy and pleasure, but also it's come at a great cost, with the deep, heavy emotions that are difficult to share with people.
Yes.
So
And
pretty much the whole book.
did that come hard at first? Because I know people who perhaps are not used to writing at first often find it really difficult to share those emotions on the page.
Um, I think with the way I write in the moment, and it's just an expression of what I was going through at that time. So as hard
Yeah.
as it was also actually quite easy.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. All right. And now I'm going to come back to you because I'll ask some questions of you and your mom together. But I'm going to switch over to your mom now. And I realize that what I actually haven't said is that um, I think because I sort of knew it so well and I sort of almost assumed that other people know it, but Cheryl was born with cerebral palsy. And so, yeah, that made this an extraordinary story. That made this not just somebody, pushing the usual limits, but pushing extraordinary limits. So, what you have done is, yeah, truly extraordinary. So that's what we're celebrating here. Okay, so Cheryl, um, yeah, that, I know that when I'm just looking for you, Cheryl. There you are. When you have a child who faces challenges, you feel extraordinarily protective and fearful for them. So this must have been a very hard journey for you as well, watching Cheryl achieve like this.
So that question is for me, Joanne. Hey.
That's for you, yeah.
Okay. Um, yes, it was hard. I think it was like waves, scary, and then relief, and then realization, if I can put it in those terms, because you never really know what's ahead in the future. And with Cheryl having been born cerebral palsied and having the right side of her body affected, her right hand was extremely weak. So with us playing horse sports and doing wild things on horses, it was not logical for her to actually ride with us and do what we were doing. Her right hand was unable to control a horse, and the sport we play, polocrosse, you play with a stick in your hand. So she had to have the stick in her left hand and hold the reins with the right. That's just one of the things that was scary. So I would watch her pushing her limits, and be very fearful sometimes. So just as one example, she climbed a tree. She was probably about 5 years old, and she has two brothers. So if she followed her older brother up the tree, and she was perched at the top of the tree, chatting happily to Craig, and I happened to see them. And I wasn't at all worried about Craig. He was 2 years older. He is 2 years older than her. But when I saw Cheryl up at the top of the tree, I panicked and I raced from the stables to the bottom of the tree and told her to get down immediately. And as she writes about it in the book, she says, if the tree wasn't going to kill her, I was going to kill her. So, you know, that stupid fear, when you feel that this child she can't control all of the muscles in her right side, and now she's doing something that, how well can she hold on? She did actually fall out of the tree, but she survived, and so did I. I think that sort of puts it in a nutshell. It was scary at times, but I'm realizing I'm overthinking this and overprotecting.
Yeah. That's amazing. Of course, you spent many years as a school principal, so you watched many young people push their limits, but watching your own daughter is, of course, emotionally completely different. So, I think you have given us an idea of how that felt on the inside. But anything to add, or do you think you've answered that?
I think, just to say one thing about things that we don't speak about sometimes, you know, if there are people online who have got a family member who has any form of challenged, you know, physical ability, the way people look at people with disabilities, you know, they either avoid eye contact, or in Cheryl's case, her right hand is spastic sometimes, and when she's stressed, sometimes you don't notice it at all, but when she's stressed, in her hand twists a little bit, and, you know, so as a parent watching your child going through this kind of, you know, your body's doing stuff that you can't control, and you're in the public eye at school, or, you know, in a shop and so on, and you so badly want to protect them from people staring and people being nasty with looks and so on, you know. I think that hasn't got anything to do with pushing limits, but it just has to do with the perception of people towards those with disabilities, and trying to them, and being afraid of when this child grows up. I'm not talking about when she was a kid, you know, we've not grown up, and but when she was a kid, you know, what is the world going to do to this child? How are they going to treat her, and how is that cruelty, or not necessarily, will there be cruelty, won't there be, and how will she respond to that? So I think that's a huge moment for me to sort of try and settle those thoughts, you know, not think about that all the time.
Yeah. Thank you. At a certain stage, you picked up a journal. What were you trying to hold on to or work out? What made you do that?
I actually don't have a clue. Except that, as I had always, you know, I taught before her sprinting journey started, I had been teaching for probably 30 years. And I had always journaled in my diary, but nothing was meticulous. I'd write down my thoughts for the day, or my prayer for the day, or a scripture, or, you know, something encouraging or motivating, so to get me through the day. But for some reason, when she started, and she mentioned Brazil just now, but I started journaling before we were in Brazil. So I had a sense that this was bigger than us. And I felt a really urgent need to be very meticulous in detail. So I would, at night, if I got to a hotel, I'd sit in my bed and I'd journal absolute details, like the crowd, or the, you know, it was just, so I just don't have an answer, but I know, I felt this is bigger than us, and needs to be.
You need to retain it. You need to keep it. Yes, understand. So, you know, of course, there's triumph in the story, but there's also fear and pain and moments when you didn't know how things would end. Did you find those harder to write?
Yes, and no. I just want to give credit here to All About Writing. This is an advert break. No, I'm just joking, but it is,
Yeah.
I do want to give, so when we first fashioned the book, as Cheryl has said, she had a lot of her journaling on her heart, and she would write me reams of paper, descriptions and the comrade's journey that would all be written down. But when we put it together as a book for the first time, in the form that all about that you and Richard got it, because we did the memoir mentoring course with you. There were a lot of emotions, I think, that I had not put down on paper. And as we went through that mentoring course, and you and Richard guided us in terms of developing the relationships between Cheryl's brothers and herself, or, all these detailed emotional journeys that were not actually in the book to start with. And I think going through the whole journey with Cheryl from childhood to this point, I had a sense probably that I had to be strong. And I think one does that generally. You sort of are so strong and you don't reveal all of your deep fears and your emotions. So, everybody just sees, okay, they're managing, they're coping. And I think that to a large extent, my husband and I and our family had done that. And so when we actually had to sit down and analyze certain things and develop the emotions and be a bit more brutally honest about what had gone through our hearts and minds in those times, I don't want to say it was hard. It was a very deep experience. It probably was hard because we hadn't done it yet, so it was something I was avoiding. And it was very therapeutic to actually go into those specific instances in a deeper way and observe my emotions and unravel how I'd felt and actually start coming to terms with some of the things that I had gone through. So there were things that were harder than others, but it was a really therapeutic experience. And the book wouldn't have spoken as it does without those emotions being revealed.
Yeah, that's important. Yeah. Okay, so both of you together. Now you were each writing your own version from your own lane, kind of thing. But did you immediately read your own writing, or did you write for some time before you showed each other what you were writing?
Cheryl, you can go first.
Cheryl, you go first.
I don't think I reread my writing. I just gave it to my mother to read.
Okay.
It was too hard to read again.
Okay, I know that feeling. Trish knows as well. I can't stand reading my writing. I have to force myself. It makes me cringe. So I understand that feeling. And Sandy, when did you first show Cheryl what you were writing?
She'd come into the office where my computer is, and she'd be planting proteas or doing something, and I'd say, read this, and then she'd sort of read a piece.
Yes.
She'd either be quiet or she'd, comment, or
yes.
we did that sort of together and apart. I did the type, so I had to transcribe her untidy writing onto the computer.
Yes.
That's it. Yeah. But it was, I was amazed, I must say, in the same way as when we sat together and we had to unravel certain episodes in her childhood, things that I'd never realized and never known about and she'd never spoken about. In the same way, when I read some of the stuff that she wrote, I was so touched and moved and surprised sometimes. And it was it was really special to me.
So actually, that was one of the questions, and it seems to lead on perfectly to that. I wanted to know, what do you know about each other now that you didn't know before you wrote the book? Cheryl?
I don't know what I know or I don't know. I've just learned more about my mom.
Generally, yeah,
To love her
yeah,
even more. Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah.
As a person and a human rather than just mom.
And I've loved growth as a writer. So
Yes,
yes.
yes, yes. Sandy?
What I've learned about Cheryl. Something that I can quickly say about that, because I think we mentioned it somewhere in the book, is some of the things that are in the book I transcribed from Cheryl's public speaking engagements. She would be invited to speak at a school or the Air Force base or whatever, and I was always completely gobsmacked by the message. She would be such a brilliant speaker. She could speak so lucidly. I felt I was this one that was the school teacher and principal. And, I thought I could, well, I don't know if I thought I could speak, but I was surprised at how amazingly she could handle public speaking. So I think that is something that, when she was a kid at school, she told the teacher she didn't like the topic that was given to her for a speech. She had to make a speech, and
Yeah.
she really didn't feel. I think it was about computers. Has she?
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
She hates computers anyway, so she told the teacher she had nothing to say. And then the teacher told her, well, then you're going to get 0. So she quite happily accepted the 0. So,
So, yes. And I think that doggedness and stubbornness has stood you in good stead through your life, Cheryl.
Yeah.
Okay, so a last question really. Were there moments where your memories of the same event were really genuinely different, where you'd experienced something in a way that the other hadn't quite seen?
Okay.
Sure.
Am I going to say?
Yeah.
I I think that there were some differences, um, but not extraordinarily different.
Okay.
There were key moments that were same. Obviously, the perspective of a parent and the child are
Yeah.
vastly different.
Yeah.
So you get the different emotions from the same story.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Sandy?
No, I think I agree completely with Cheryl. Yeah, our
Yeah.
perspectives are different, but
Yeah.
we said a lot about it as well. We would discuss,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
our viewpoint and
Okay.
agree.
All right. Well, now let me hop over to Kerry and Karina. So, firstly, uh, everybody's always interested to hear about publishing. So, can you tell us a little bit about how Indeed Books works, and how it works and what drew you to this particular model of publishing?
Hmm. As some of you will know, I am the publisher at Caravan Press. And for a long time, I've been working with many authors, but I have very, very limited capacity. And I realized that there were quite a lot of authors out there who needed help, but were very happy to also go the self-publishing route, but they just wanted a little bit of assistance from somebody who knew what they were doing. And I know that there are other platforms that offer that kind of assistance, but they are not always very fair. So, as you know, there are some real sharks out there, and one needs to be.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's quite dangerous, really, to walk into this without proper recommendations. And very often what happens is that even at the end of the process, if you have a very nice book and you haven't bled for it,
Yeah.
it's still not being distributed. So what I thought was that it would be wonderful to provide a platform that assists self-published authors, but also to curate it properly. So not to take on any kind of book that people want to publish, but just to search for the kind of stories that one can also eagerly offer for bookshops to sell, so that the distribution would really function properly.
Yes, yes.
And I've been toying with this idea for a while, and Kerry and I have been working on all kinds of projects over the last few years together. And one day I just said to her, this is what is going on in my mind. Would you feel about coming on board and doing something like this with me? And because we worked so well on all sorts of other projects together, we formed a partnership and then also discussed a lot of ideas around how we wanted to do this. And I think the most important thing about Indeed Books is that we really make all decisions together.
Yeah.
That we both have to love a story in order to start working on it. And with Unbridling, it was an absolute no-brainer. We just
Yeah.
loved the story.
Yeah. Yes, I mean, I think you've half answered this. I was going to say, how do you choose the books you work with? Because you're such careful curators. And, what are you looking for in the books that you choose?
Yeah, I think, if you look at what's on our website, it talks about we're looking for works that people are going to enjoy reading,
Yeah.
that people want to read. And I think it comes across in the writing. So something can be well written with a great story. We're also working with authors who have a great story, and the writing is quite good, but we need to work with them further. But we can see the potential. So
Yes.
I think
Yes.
I think because Karina's worked in publishing, and I've worked a lot with other writers on manuscript, etc. We know when something has that seed.
Yes.
So
Yes.
not all books come to us, completely polished, but definitely, what is a good story? What is good writing? What are the readers actually going to enjoy reading?
Yeah.
And we have a variety of books. We have short stories, we have Unbridling, we have a poetry collection, we have another one coming out. We've got more short stories, we've got a really fabulous non-fiction self-help for young mothers, which is told in this really wacky style. So what we look for can be very different. It's very
Yes.
much about the book. Mm.
Okay, brilliant. And in the case of Unbridling, what caught you first? Was it the characters, the voice, the story of struggle and triumph?
For me, the absolute inspiration of the story,
Mm.
Cheryl and Sandy are two truly remarkable people and truly exceptional women, and they have amazing voices. So it's a
Yeah,
combination. It's everything. This story
Mm.
really has everything.
it
They have
resonated. Yeah,
Yeah, it
Mm.
resonated immediately, and it's
yeah,
so inspirational and
yeah,
empowering.
yeah.
And I,
Brilliant.
and I, and I think
Yes,
also for me, I think it was very much Cheryl and Sandy's connection to community. There's a
yeah,
story in the book about the very first time that they bring children who are disabled together in their community to some kind of event.
that's right.
And I
Yeah,
tell you, every time I read that story, and I've read it a lot of times,
yeah.
it still gets tears in
You
my
get,
eyes.
yeah,
It's just,
yeah.
so it's all of those things. It's such a heartfelt book.
Yes, yes. Brilliant. Okay, so I know you work closely with authors through the process in the editing, the design, the production. So, how does that collaboration look in practice, or does it differ according to the book or the state, the state that the book is in when it comes to you?
So I think it's quite a set standard process in the sense that we will work with the author on editing. And I think that's where the difference will be with the different books. Some books require a lot more editing.
Sure.
And so one of us will then deep dive into that particular book with the author, with the other one providing support. And then we do all of our editing in-house. So it's what we do. And then we work with a number of typesetters and book designers. We get quotes, and this is why it's collaborative, because we don't just decide, okay, we're just going to go with this typesetter. We get quotes. The author
Yeah.
is the one who then looks at it. We make a recommendation. They make a decision. And then we go through the typesetting process. We're very hands-on with that. We make a lot of recommendations. For example, this book that I was talking about with the self-help one, it was a lot of decisions about the typesetting because of the way the book's structured, and there's lists and there's takeaways and there's photographs. So we provide a lot of that expertise. And I think that's for writers, that's where a lot of the comfort comes from, because they
Yes.
don't know
They're
how
not,
to, they
yeah.
don't know,
Yes.
simple things like, I don't know, I can't even think of an example now, but when you look at a book, you want it to look really good.
Yes.
And so we bring all of those decisions in with the author.
And very
Look into
often
it.
when self-published books look self-published,
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
and it's very simple things that need to change in order to change that perception. And
Yes.
we know what those tricks
Mm.
are, and it's not magic, and it's not a secret either. But for
Yeah.
whatever reason, authors embarking on the self-publishing journey very often skip the research, and well, we have done the research, so we can advise accordingly.
Yes. Fantastic. So one last question for you. I know a lot of people in our audience are thinking or hoping to go through their own publishing journey. What is the most important thing that you wish more writers understood about the road from manuscript to published book?
I'm going to laugh because I said to Karina early today, we must run a boot camp for writers for simple things like formatting. But I think even before that, I think the most important thing is the writing, and to find a writing community that you can interact with, you can show your work to. If you find a writing mentor to work with, that is great. Because it is the good quality of the writing, along with the story, that really makes it a great book.
Yeah.
From my side, I wish that everybody would just take those few hours and really look at their bookshelves and see, well, I'm writing a memoir. What do memoirs actually look like? So actually examine the physical object that a book is. I'm writing a poetry collection. I'm writing essays. Whatever you are doing, have a look at 10 different versions of what you are also writing, and see what is out there. This is also the easiest way to find a literary agent, to find a publisher, to just have a look who else is doing something that is similar to me, which agents are interested in this kind of work, which publishers are interested in this kind of work, and also just go to your library, go to a bookshop, and just do a little bit of research. Only a few hours of looking at books before you embark on the rest of the journey.
That's fantastic. That's a really full and useful answer
And
for
a little secret,
yes.
copyright and acknowledgements. The copyright page contains amazing information, and so do mostly acknowledgements. So if you are looking for a designer or a proofreader or an editor, and you have read a few books that have been edited or proofread or designed by a particular person or a particular company, that's where you need to go.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Okay, now we're going to transition over to Sandy and Cheryl in their own words. So we've asked each of you to choose a shorter extract, something that feels like the heart of what you were trying to say, or a moment that captures something essential. Okay, so let's start with Sandy this time, and then we'll move to Cheryl.
Okay, am I on?
You're on.
Okay, great. Okay, so where is this thing? This is early on in the book. It was one of those matchless South African days. Shards of sunlight sparkled on the aquamarine waves. The white dunes glistened in the heat. A pair of seagulls hollered raucously, swooping towards us. Our walk had taken us close to their nesting site, where a fluffy, mottled chick shuffled unsteadily on his feet. Sea sand sprayed into their air as the seagull pair touched down next to their chick. Muttering, they stood protectively on either side of it. Ordinarily, I would have been entertained by the birds' behavior and would have wanted to assure them that their chick was safe. But I was distracted. My eyes were on Cheryl. Tottering a bit, then steadying herself, she laughed with delight. She had just discovered that she could put one foot in front of the other and actually move forward, upright. A row of tiny footprints trailed in the sand behind her. Each left footprint pointed forward, while each right footprint angled somewhat awkwardly towards the left. The pattern of little footprints stared up at us from the soft white beach sand, as clear as a perfect day. Something was wrong. I knew it. Chris was on his haunches, his fingers tracing the outline of one of the little footprints. Craig came running towards us, holding out a fistful of sand and shells. Look, Daddy! I bent down to stop Cheryl from stuffing a handful of sand into her mouth. Your first steps! Well done! I gathered her into my arms, hugged her against me, burying my face in her warm neck. She smelt of sea sand, salt, and baby shampoo. The roar of the ocean and the call of the seagulls faded. All I was aware of was the thud of my heart against her little body.
Wow, Sandy, thank you. Okay, and those details just drew us right into that time and place. Thank you. Lovely. Cheryl.
Right, okay, I hope I get through this. It's part of the comrade's journey.
Yeah. If you get tearful, we don't mind. We'll probably weep with you.
No, it's okay. Okay. I felt people were looking at me as if to say, ach, shame. The writing was on the wall. Finishing would be nigh impossible, but my legs seemed to have a mind of their own. Left, right, left. I could hear the desperate voices of onlookers on the pavement. You can do it. Well, I was sure they ain't no you can't. Speed up with the impression that if I didn't, I would make it. Someone shouted behind me, Jy gaan het maak. But in my heart, I felt he was saying, she's toast. At some point, a friendly soul offered me a cup of soup, which I accepted gratefully. Then I pressed on. I can do it. Pain won't kill me. That's what Almin said. I stumbled along, head down, left, right, left. With less than 20 kilometers to go, I lifted my head and saw Craig and Mom on the side of the road. They waved and shouted something, but their voices drowned in the din of others shouting. When I reached them, they fell into step beside me, Craig on my left and Mom on my right. It's not the end of the world if you stop. You don't have to prove anything. Mom held out a quarter of a peanut butter sandwich as she spoke. The smell of the peanut butter didn't help the nausea that I had been feeling for the last few kilometers. I won't stop, I gasped, ignoring the sandwich. I can't come this far and just give up. My legs were on the verge of collapsing under me. Not stopping. Okay, it didn't sound like she meant it. I wished they would go away. I felt defeated in my spirit at the mere thought of pulling out. As I shuffled along, sidestepping the discarded paper cups and plastic water sachets that lay strewn across the road, I knew if I stopped now, I would never come back. Grandad told me to give you a message. Out of the corner of my eye, Craig's stride looked steady and comfortable next to my shuffle as we headed up the hill. What? He said to tell you that you already done enough to prove yourself. He said it'll be okay if you get off the road now. Done enough to prove yourself, despite my state of exhaustion. Something about what he said struck a chord. I allowed the words to sink in. Grandad saw something that nobody else did. I could not hold my tears back, and neither could I stop. Devastated, defeated, and completely broken, I limped on without responding to Craig. I just had to get my head in the right space. In spite of the truth of Grandad's words, I felt I had failed, proving everyone right in the process. They had all told me I shouldn't run this year.
Wow, Cheryl.
Okay.
We lived that with you, and yeah, that's very moving. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, now we are open for questions. So can you, if you've got a question for any of our guests, will you type it in the chat and I will relay it to them. I'm sure you've got questions. Oh, yes. Well, Frankie, thank you. That we were going to say at the end. She asks, where can we buy your book? I was going to tell you that at the end, but let's tell you now, and I'll say it again, and we'll include it in the thank you email tomorrow. The book can be ordered from any good bookshop, and particularly Wordsworth and Exclusives. So, yeah. There you are. You should be able to, get it at any shop. Okay, Cheryl, who inspires you?
I don't like to answer. I like to tell people that I am inspired by that I come across. I'm inspired by the good character that they demonstrate, and that is something that I wish to emulate in people that I see. So, I mean, obviously, my parents, my brothers, my family, my gran. She's an incredible woman. But yeah, I find inspiration in everyone.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. And here's one for Kerry and Karina. Do you accept books that have already been indie published and the author now wishes to get it out to a larger audience?
Not really, but what we can advise is to get a book to a larger audience, you need two things. So promotion, marketing, and of course distribution. And for both, there are ways of getting assistance. With marketing and promotion, there are individual people who can act as your publicist for a book. But it will also depend on when it was published. If it was published 5 years ago, then I would rather focus on the next one and maybe give the first one a second life with the next title. And with distribution, it's very, very difficult in South Africa to get a distributor. But the one that accepts individual authors and self-published authors regularly is Blue Weaver, yeah. And they have a very good website and very good representation. So Blue Weaver is an option. And the next question, can you recommend publishers for an Afrikaans memoir? Afrikaans memoir, now there is the big trade publisher that merged with the NB group. Jonathan Ball and NB are now one publisher under the umbrella of Jonathan Ball, and they would be able to publish an Afrikaans memoir, one of their imprints. The ones that I can immediately think of, I think, would be probably Tafelberg, Human and Resort, Jonathan Ball themselves. I think Penguin Random House will probably also publish Afrikaans memoir. It will also depend on who it's written by and what the story is. They merged with Lapa a few years ago, and I don't know what Lapa's profile is, but I know that they publish a lot of Afrikaans. So these are options. And again, what I would do is go to the South African, what they call ghetto at Exclusive Books. Look at the Afrikaans books, memoirs published there, and just see who is doing those books, and make a list and start contacting those publishers. And what I can definitely please advise is follow their submission rules. Publishers really get a lot of manuscripts, and if you don't follow their submission guidelines, they will just basically ignore you because they have so many other manuscripts that are properly submitted. Yeah.
Thanks, Karina. That's incredibly helpful and specific, I think. Okay, so one for Sandy and Cheryl. How long did it take to write the memoir?
Well, I'll answer, Sher.
Yes, yes.
I think from the point, now I'm not talking about the journaling part of it, but from the point of putting chapters together to actually publishing and printing it at the end of last year was 4 years, more or less.
Yeah. I think that's pretty standard. Thanks. Okay, and now to both of you. Although Cheryl, your journaling was slightly different, mainly, as you say, on your heart. But was your journaling a mix of capturing details of what happened and reflections and feelings, etc.?
Yes, I think it was definitely both.
Yeah. For you, yeah. And Sandy, did you were specifically capturing to remember, but also reflecting?
Absolutely, yeah. It was definitely both,
Yeah. Okay, and another one for both of you. Did you have difficulty remembering things that happened long ago, and how did you overcome that?
Sher, you go first.
I think that's where we both sat together and shared. It was those moments when we'd gone through the editing, or my mom had done the writing course, and she was now really getting the storyline right and the formatting of the book. And then we had to sit together and talk about moments and draw out details. And I don't think there are a lot of moments that write that probably numerous moments that we sort of just put together into one moment with the kinds of conversations that would have been had around the fire on the farm or on the polocrosse field or in the car.
Yeah. Okay. Sandy, anything to add?
I think she's basically covered it, yeah.
Okay.
I think the point was that were there things that were difficult to remember, or had we?
Yes.
So I think that goes back to what I said earlier, where sometimes one masks what happened in your memory. I don't know if there are memoir writers out here. I'm sure there are, because this is a memoir. So if you go and examine your memoir and look at how it develops and look at certain episodes in your life, you'll sometimes find that you masked the memory for various reasons, whether it was too emotional or too traumatic or whatever. So I don't think it's necessarily a case of not remembering the things. I think sometimes we choose to forget them, and we actually have to choose to remember them again.
Yeah.
I think that's an important part of memoir writing. I'm not a practiced memoir writer, but that's what I've discovered is you actually have to make a choice that I'm going to dig up that memory.
Thank you. Okay, and here's one from Marianne, who couldn't join us live. She said, I'm writing a memoir about a difficult period in her family's life, and she's struggling with how much to include about people who are still alive. Is that something you had to navigate? And if so, how? And she says, did you show the manuscript to anyone who features in it?
Shay, do you want me to answer that, or do you want to answer?
You can answer that.
Okay. All right. So that's a very real issue, I think. And there are things that were very difficult that are not in the book. Some of them, yeah. So we had to navigate. Not a lot. It's one. Let's just leave it at that. But we did discuss this. So difficult because we can't really talk about it here. But we did. The person was who it related to. We made the episode around that part of the journey fairly general, and so that it wouldn't implicate anybody who's still alive. And we tried to still get the message across without being personal. And we did communicate with that person who is in our circle of people in the community. And that person was happy with, with the book and with being mentioned in the book and so on. But there's nothing, it's sometimes you feel like you're a bit of a liar when you don't go to the real nitty-gritty of something, but because you have to protect people who are still alive. And I think that's part of, we all have our own perspectives and things. So yeah, I don't think there's a one size fits all thing there. You need to be careful with, episodes that are very traumatic or tender or could be damaging. And yeah. I don't know. I'm sure Joanne can advise you much better than I can.
I mean, I just think, and Karina and Kerry can say if they agree, you have to make that decision of how important those incidents are to the story that you're telling. It's your memoir after all, and you are telling a story about how things and people affected you when you are writing it. If it's a tangent and it doesn't really matter here or there to the story, I guess leave it out. But if it's integral to the story that you are telling, I would say grit your teeth and put it down. On Kerry and Karina, would you agree with me?
I will agree with Joanne 100% that if it's integral to your story and it is really important to tell, and I think you always have to question yourself why it's important to tell. If you are sharing in order to connect with other people, to make them feel less alone in the world, if you are doing it for reasons that have a lot of integrity, then there are all kinds of ways of sharing stories that are sensitive. And one of the simplest ones is that to diffuse the actual connection. So if let's say you want to write about your brother, but you only have one brother, then everybody will know that it is your brother. But if that kind of particular dynamic that unfolded and you want to tell about can also happen with a female cousin, then write about a female cousin without naming them, and you might have 10 female cousins and nobody will ever know which one it was. There is a way of preserving the core of the story without exposing the actual people who are involved. But each case will be different, and that is where talking to other writers or to a mentor or to a publisher really helps. And in some cases, I would advise to talk to lawyers to seek legal advice, because certain things might get you into trouble if you tell them as they were.
Thanks. That's very,
Can I,
very helpful.
can I say
Mm,
something quickly?
Of course.
Yeah. So just also in line with, I agree completely with you and Karina, and in line with something that Karina said there, that it must further the story. It must be relevant. So in our case, this particular thing that was difficult to write about was actually something that carried on after the story. It's a different. It's not what the book is about. It
Yeah.
was an emotional thing, but it's not the point of the book. It is a point, it's a very valid point. And if we were to write about it one day, we would, I think I got this advice from Karina, we would make it fiction probably and change the gender of the person who was, just because it's an important point, but it's not for this book.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. And then last couple of questions. Would you consider writing a book about your process of writing this book? I think you can answer that quite quickly. Yeah.
I'll answer quickly.
Yes.
I don't know if it would be valuable, but it's been the most amazing journey. The whole process, from being involved with All About Writing to Karina and Kerry and the support we got from them, and Gail Gilbride, who many of you probably know. The process is so new to us, and it's been such an incredible process that, yeah, maybe we could.
Yes. Okay. All right. Well, I think, Mari, you asked a question about people who had died. I think the same answer applies. It's, I mean, the one thing.
Karina has
Yes.
something to say.
Yes.
This will sound terrible, but dead people have no right to privacy.
It's
So
exactly
in that,
what I was about to say. Yes.
yeah. So basically the same applies, but it's a bit different. So legally you are in much less hot waters.
Yes. And you can't defame a dead person. So, yeah. So, but apart from that, I think the same things apply, how important it is to the story, etc.
And apart from anything else, I think if you are writing with integrity, there are ways of discussing it with the people who are involved, or with the relatives in this case. So if somebody is deceased, you can go to the relatives and say, look, I want to tell this story. It's very important to me. This is why I'm telling it. And this is how I would like to present the relative. How do you feel about it? And through conversations, one can very often find a way of how to still write.
Yeah. Okay, thank you all so much. And thank you, Sandy and Cheryl and Kerry and Karina. It's been a joy having you on our webinar. It's always lovely working with you. And just to say again, the book, Unbridling, let's have a look so that you can recognize it. Order it from any good bookshop, but particularly Wordsworth and Exclusives. And just thank you all for joining us. We always love having you. And any last words, Kerry, Karina, Cheryl, Sandy, any last words?
No, just thanks to everybody for this opportunity to speak.
Yeah, and thank you to All About Writing for doing what you do. It's
Mhm.
amazing. It's a very, very important part of the literary community.
Oh, thank you. Thanks.
Yes, I agree. Thank you. Thank you, All About Writing, Joanne, Trish, Richard, and Kerry and Karina. And thanks to all of you guys out there. Enjoy writing. Make it happen.